By tear gas the way we always have. They don't know.
But I'm like the perfect guy to be single because
Creating ways for men to come together.
boom. We're here. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. Boom, we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hearts over everything. It's a cool name. My dog, she's beat him. Anyway, if you're listening, rate, share, subscribe, all that. If you're listening, also you can watch on Big Mood TV. Matt does amazing production. Show him love. Come on, guys. We just want to connect with you. You already know which reaching our hand out. But today we have a guest.
Hello,
She's very lovely.
hello.
So we have Gianna Clark. She's an artist. She's a mom. She's a coach. She's the newest. She's one of our new coaches on Big Mood, and she's like a new collaborator with Big Mood. She works with women entirely. She works in the feminine in the femininity space, and we're gonna hear what that looks like. What it is to embody divine feminine, and then this is my partner, so we're gonna talk about the balance back and forth of the masculine and the feminine, and we get to play within that in this podcast. So, what's up, homegirl?
What's poppin'? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So tell people, let's talk about, just start easy. What do you do? And go through everything. Go explain the Yoni thing. Just go off.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I'm Gianna. And basically my life, the past several years has been really dedicated to healing the feminine center. So whatever that looks like for most women, I have several different offers that I love to be able to share with women, specifically Yoni steaming. That's where my heart's at, to be able to use this tool that our ancestors and many, many, many years has been practicing.
Explain
And
that. Explain what Yoni
ooh,
steaming
Yoni
is, and
steaming.
explain the benefits.
Okay, there's so many benefits to Yoni steaming. So basically, you you get naked, and I really, really prefer to tap into this space and make it more of a meditative ritual, self-love. You get specific herbs for your body, what your body needs, and there's like a whole guideline along with that as well. And I guess I'll just walk you through the process of what I do with a client. So we'll get grounded and we'll clear first, and I'll guide my clients through a beautiful guided clearing meditation. So we'll tap into the womb space, and a lot of people aren't super familiar with what the womb space is. They're thinking it's just like a physical body part that women have, but it's so much deeper than that. The womb space really is a place for where creativity and life start, and I think it's really powerful to operate from a place of a healed womb, where that's where our intuition for women, that's where our intuition comes from. We call it the first brain. So yeah, I'll guide my client through this guided meditation of just releasing. And a lot of times stuck emotions that are not processed through get stored in there. And to release them, you're so cute. To release them, we'll guide them through like where's our womb space, and actively like place our hands on our womb and tap into that area and just release emotionally all the things that we've been holding on to and stored onto inside that space. And then I'll give them this beautiful gown to kind of get them in setting, and we'll do an oracle reading. So a lot of times I'll use the oracle reading to just kind of set us in place and give them some confirmation on maybe some things that they're looking for, they're calling in and trying to release. And that's always usually a really powerful way to begin our sessions. And then I will curate a specifically packaged herb setup for them. So they'll give me their needs and their benefits and all the things that they're looking for ahead of time. So I will curate this perfect package for them of herbs, and I'll steam some herbs for them, boil them basically, boil water, and then I put them in a special pot. And I'll have them sit on this perfectly curated, handmade by me, Yoni steaming throne. And then we start our session. And so basically, you want to open up your hips and sit on this Yoni steaming throne and allow the steam to gently penetrate the inside of your vagina and your womb, which essentially goes in and will melt away, I guess you could say, the excess, everything that's inside, physically, mentally, emotionally. A lot of times over the years, things that we eat and emotions and birth control, all of these things can really add to the clogged ness of what's inside of our womb.
We're gonna note something. We're gonna talk about birth control in a minute.
Okay, yeah,
We're
let's
gonna
talk
talk
about
about
it.
that.
Let's talk about it.
But continue. Explain Yoni like that,
hmm
because people may not understand what that concept, like what that word even means.
hmm
So why do you refer to a vagina as Yoni?
So a yoni is the Sanskrit word for vagina, for your vulva, for the woman's sexual center. And so I personally like to use the word yoni because it's not like online. I've been working through talking about and saying the word like pussy just because I feel like it could rub people the wrong way sometimes. So yoni, I feel like is more of like a professional word, but it's just a word that's been used for many, many years to describe the woman's sexual center and the vagina. So
Gotcha.
yeah, and I just think it's like a pretty word, yoni. You know, you've
Yeah.
probably heard of like yoni eggs and things like that. So yeah, that's where it comes from. And what else? Let's see. So yeah, I'll do several sessions of yoni steaming for my client, and usually they see progress with whatever their symptoms are and things like that within after a first session. But I like to have them on a steam protocol, so I'll have them come back a couple of times, and it's a new experience every time. But basically, I walk them through this whole experience, and my passion really is to educate women. So, what is your womb? What's in your womb? Why do what is the whole purpose of womb healing?
Why would someone
Um,
need this?
hmm. A lot of times it could be trauma to the womb, whether it be like sexually, emotionally, when you're a child, and over the years, like our wombs physically take a lot of damage, whether it be like periods and cramping, and all our wombs go through a lot. And so, really, to release a lot of the stuff that's stored inside that space is really, really crucial to operate from a place of like wholeness. Um, it really is a powerful, powerful tool to be able to clear yourself, cleanse yourself of stuck emotions, past partners, emotional traumas, physical traumas, sexual traumas, things like that. It's really important to
So
tap
not only is
into.
it a physical, like kinesthetic experience,
hmm
it's an emotional and metaphysical experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it feels good. So it's like a whole plus. It's a one-on-one.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful. So let's talk about you as a coach,
Oh goodness.
because
Okay.
you're just um I see so much potential in you as a coach.
Thank you.
Um because you already do it. I was talking to a fellow today who's in the early stages of his coaching business, and I was like, "What can you talk about? What do you know that you can just spit at at the top of your head, and it's at the tip of your tongue all the time?" And for you, women's empowerment and healthy relationship to body and to
Mhm.
femininity is something that comes off your tongue so easily. So let's talk about and explore what you want to see yourself as, where you see yourself as a coach. What do you want to create?
Beautiful. Oh gosh, this is such a loaded question. Okay, my mind is constantly moving at a million miles a minute, and my real goal and passion is to heal, is to spread healing education about healing and be able to provide a space for women specifically to heal. And I really feel that healing myself has brought me to such a deeper place of being able to understand how other women need to heal as well. Going through my own experiences, own traumas, all that stuff has brought me to a place of like, ooh, something needs to change in my life. And so really starting with my own healing has like basically shown me that there needs to be healing, and there's healing to be done with everybody. And so, yeah, what I love to do with coaching, I'm really excited to begin coaching with specifically Big Mood. I feel like there's a lot of different places in our lives that we get to heal. Um, mm, so yeah, really womb health. I talk about it all the time. Like there's so many different avenues of healing. I really love to perform Reiki on the womb specifically. I feel like kind of getting that energetic motion going and getting things stirred up can really make an easier like release when it comes to yoni steaming. So I add that as well if that's something that women want with their packaging. Let's see. You asked me about coaching. My dream is to have a space, a beautiful space where women can come and we do retreats where we educate each other, have other women from the community that share gifts, whether it be like sound healing or body movement or whatever that the gift that they want to bring that will come and heal into the space. Have them be able to perform and share that gift with women as well, and basically have maybe a day or two or three, like just a retreat to get away and to educate ourselves, to connect. And really, I think connection is a huge part of healing as well. With guiding and finding that support is really important. So yeah, that's my dream. I just want to be able to host space for women and hold that safe space for them as
Yeah,
well.
it's beautiful.
Mm.
I see it for you, and I see it for it's such a compliment to what I do. And we're gonna go into that. Let's go right into let's talk about birth control really quick.
Ooh, let's talk about birth control.
So you're not about it.
Not about it.
It's a conversation we had.
A lot.
Serious conversation.
A lot.
You're not about it. Why are you not about birth control?
As young women, around like 12 and 13, we start getting our periods and we start experiencing changes in our body and acne and hormonal issues and all sorts of things that come up. And it's been noted that many doctors, or first of all, will just be like, oh, we'll just take birth control for your cramps or your period symptoms or your acne or whatever it is that comes up. And we're just like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. It prevents pregnancy, whatever. And we haven't, let me speak on myself. I and my mom and the women close around me didn't really know what birth control is like doing for your body negatively, right? We know it prevents pregnancy and can help with some of these symptoms, but ultimately there's so much more of an underlying issue that comes from birth control. One of them being birth control actually does, most of them, the ones I've experienced and ones that I've studied a little bit more, does cause more mucus buildup in your body and mucus inside of your womb specifically. And mucus is a harvest ground for bacteria, which then in turn, women commonly, not normally, but commonly get UTIs, yeast infections, STIs, all those things. A lot of it's from bacteria. There's a lot of reasons for birth control. I'm not really about. I mean, I think it's a great tool when needed, but I also know that there's a lot of damage that can be done from birth control. So yeah, I'm all about tracking your cycle and living cyclically. So figuring out how to track your cycle, track your ovulation and all of that to be able to plan appropriately to make sure that you're being safe and treating your body the way it needs to be treated. But I really feel like a lot of underlying issues, even emotional, come from birth control. So
that puts a lot of, and you and I have had this conversation, that puts a lot of emphasis on intentional sexuality. Because when you're living a life where you're sleeping around, it's very convenient to be on birth control. So you don't have to worry about your cycle. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can just sleep with whoever you want to. And that's dating culture right now. It has been for the last couple of years. It's been like, okay, I'm gonna go on Tinder. I'm gonna fuck around, and like until I find the guy who I'm gonna date, and sometimes marry.
And they feel like there's no repercussions. Like if you think that there's no repercussions, you're like, oh, I'm safe. I'm fine.
Exactly. So, but it goes with that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But like for you and I in a relationship, our sex life we try to keep it more intentional. So living like a life where you're paying attention to your cycle and pay attention to how your womb is active, it fits that lifestyle. But for a lot of women, it just doesn't. It takes a lot of intention and a lot of energy.
It's work. It's for sure work. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times birth control can really become like a barrier where you're not able to tap fully into your womb space because she's not breathing.
And
she's clogged.
It tricks you to be pregnant. And did you know that on birth control, the way you receive pheromones and hormones, like the way you receive them, like smell them on a guy, is distorted. So like when you're off birth control, you can organically choose a better partner.
Interesting.
Because of that, understanding that chemistry, understanding those subtle receptions of the hormones and pheromones that are passed back and forth, but it's distorted when you're on hormonal birth control.
Interesting.
This is a fact. This is not my.
Let's talk about that later.
It's fucking tight. But
interesting.
But yeah, so it affects how we choose partners being on birth control. And who knows, like if you choose the right partner, that's anybody's business. But like it's interesting to know that may be a
factor.
Maybe a factor.
Wow. And it really does go back to like intentionality. I think that's really important. That's something that we talk a lot about, is being intentional with our words, with our communication, with our bodies and everything. And I feel like tapping into that space really without birth control, personally speaking, I was birth control since I was 13 years old and was on for many, many years up until the past couple of years. I'm like, this isn't like good for me. And so I did a lot of research on it and I started learning more about my body and how I get to tap into my womb space and how I notice that there's so much clearer communication from between me and my womb and being able to speak life into her and like watch her blossom and grow and heal and release what doesn't serve me anymore. Birth control has played a huge part in, I think, the disconnect. I think it's a huge disconnecting like factor.
Absolutely. Keeps you, I believe it. I don't try not to speak on women's body stuff, but like I can imagine it can create a disconnect from that space, um, cerebrally. Like you're like checked out. You're almost checked out. You're like, I don't have to worry about it. So you can like check out from that space. Um, as opposed to like when you're off birth control, you're just being you get to be very
Right,
intentional
and listen to
with
your
your
body too.
exactly
You get to
listening to your
listen,
body.
like, I know when my cycle's coming because I know it's not just, like, cramps and everything, like, I speak to my womb, and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way?" Even when it comes to, like, stress and anxiety, like, I can feel it in my body because I'm listening, and I've kind of broke down that barrier with birth control. I'm like, "That's not something that I want to, like, block myself from anymore." And it's different for every woman, but that's something that I feel strongly about for me personally.
Beautiful. And I love that you feel. I love that. I love that you feel strong. I'm vasectomized, so we busting free nuts out here. We out here. Not yet. We're almost there. Yeah, we're almost there. But let me move this mic closer to my mouth because I know Matt is fucking. He knows. But let's talk about. So I asked this question to a lot of my to my female guests who are in this space. I asked Christina Jerry, and I've asked Shofar Graves came on, and we talked about masculine because last year when I went through my separation, I felt emasculated in that relationship, and I wanted to like be a man and feel like a man. So to you, so we're gonna go both femininity and masculinity, but what is masculinity to you? What is
Mm.
the healthy expression to you?
The first word that comes to mind is truth, is living in your truth. And also being sensitive to the truth of others as well. I don't know why that came up, but that's something that I notice that I am attracted to in a healthy masculine is being able to speak your truth and be sensitive to others as well. Mm. I think, and it's so interesting because I've been doing a lot more research on feminine versus masculine, and not even verse, but just like both of them
The
together and in
polarities,
unison.
yeah.
Absolutely, the flow of the feminine and masculine. And it's so different than like what I was programmed to think that masculinity was, right? Like growing up, and even up until the past several years, like my view of masculinity wasn't necessarily like an energy. It was more of just like, ooh, like I'm a man and like I take care of things and I dig in the backyard with a shovel and like just like manly
Yeah.
stuff,
The
you know? And
caricature.
right. And really like I've come to realize it's so much more than just like traits, right? It's so much more than like gender roles. It's more of like it's a presence. It's a presence. It's how you operate in a certain way. Why are you looking at me like
I don't know. I like what you said.
It's true. It's a presence, and you can feel that the difference between a healthy or toxic masculine man. There's a difference in the way that they look at you, the way that they communicate with you, and how they move and operate. Right? You can like watch the difference. Um, I can. So yeah. What was the question?
What do you what describe healthy masculinity to you?
Mm, Protection. I feel like somebody who listens and flows in the healthy masculine space is a protector and or wants to be a protector, whether it be of themselves, of other people, like in a very healthy way. Women, specifically children, I think that that's a really beautiful trait that healthy masculine can embody is, yeah, being able to protect truth. Let's see. I think that the healthy masculine, I mean, this is just true. The healthy masculinity comes with a healthy balance of femininity.
Absolutely.
They
Yeah.
coincide. Like it's
Yeah.
crucial for both of them. And so I think like our culture has made men believe that they just need to be this hard, tough guy to be masculine. And that's not necessarily true. I think that tapping into your emotions as a man is really important for healthy masculinity.
Absolutely. That's my shit. That's the vacillation between both.
Yeah.
Because you can't it just once you've studied the energies and like understand the energies and understand how necessary the feminine energy is, that
Mhm.
emotional groundedness, being like, okay, I'm emotional awareness rather
Mhm.
that women have
Mm.
naturally, and as a man to be able to have that plays into the stoicism. I think that goes into the healthy masculine, that understanding, like, yes, I can acknowledge my emotions clearly, like you know me, like I know when my moods are fucked up, like I'm very
In
understanding of
tune.
yeah, I'm very in tune with
Mhm.
my emotions. um and that leads into like the stoicism of masculine, of like okay, I'm in tune with my emotions, but I'm not going to make decisions based on my emotions. So I
That's
feel
where
like
like the masculine groundedness comes in.
exactly. But if you're not super in tune with your emotions, the stoicism isn't. It just doesn't correlate. I don't know how to explain that better. But they play hand in hand. And you know what else? The flowiness of the feminine, of like being able to go with the flow. I struggle there. I struggle I'm like timely, like orderly, like structured,
Yeah, I feel
and
that.
but I feel like that one thing I feel like as men we could all learn is that flow. What are you looking at?
I'm looking up a note that I wrote about this. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, look it
Cool.
up.
Keep talking. I'm really
No,
good
in podcasts, it's not like a talk show. So
I've never been on that.
Yeah, so look at what you're looking up. Let me see if I could understand, like, explain the masculine, the feminine understanding of your emotions and playing into stoicism. I think stoicism is a very important part of masculine, and that is logic. Being logical is, for me, is very important in my masculine expression. And even when we were arguing today, I was like, no, I'm not. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm like neutral. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's like hella masculine. To be like, no, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm in the middle, and I, I let you. I talked about it on the podcast. I let you rock, and you're like in like the ego, and in like the hubris of being in your 20s. I let you rock, but like for me, the stoicism and the understanding that I have now is that I don't know. And I feel like that's part of healthy masculine. That takes time, because like a guy in their 20s, they think they know they think they know shit, and just you just don't. And me and Matt were laughing a couple weeks ago just because this is you don't. And so I feel like that plays into it. But to be emotionally in tune, what allows you to like more deeply be in touch with the understanding that you don't know, and understanding like the groundedness, that the importance of stoicism, and being able to like, okay, so here's how I feel. Here's where I'm going to make my decision. That makes sense.
Yes.
So here's how I feel, but here's what I'm going to choose.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So that I think that's the best way I get it.
And that comes up with maturity as well.
Comes with maturity.
That's a huge mature thing to be like, oh, I feel this way, but like maybe not responding or immediately like reacting.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, let me sit with this for a moment, see how I feel. And even if I do, like, what's the best way to approach the situation or this response?
Exactly.
Very mature. Can I read a little part of what I wrote? Okay. Truth is, divine feminine and divine masculine are two sides of the same coin. Different and equally powerful and equally important. When they come together in balance, they bring their separate qualities and energies into unity, and then creation, magic, and love occur. The divine feminine and the divine masculine can be thought of like a yin and yang. They're both necessary for balance, but they are different. Both energies work in tandem, always in flow. And that's something that you and I talk about a lot. Like, you actually showed this to me or told me this months ago. You're like, no, it's not like a spectrum necessarily. They're in flow.
Yeah.
And like certain occasions and certain times call for more of one of the energies, right? Like in parenting, I feel like there's a lot of masculine energy that gets used, or business, right? We get to like tap into that structure, into that logic. Like, that's really important to be able to balance the masculine. And I love that you said that it's about logic. The divine masculine like trait is very action based, focused on doing rather than being. The divine masculine is universal fatherhood energy, and it's all about things like structure, logic, critical thinking, and taking charge. This energy is at play with things like assertiveness, confidence, speaking up for yourself, and sometimes fighting the good fight. And so, whereas the divine feminine represents universal motherhood, right? Like, when we think of mothers in general, we think of like nurturing and loving and tender, right? Like, not all the time, but like as mothers, that's a big part of our role. This energy can be more passive and willing to compromise. Where feminine energy can be very internal and reflective, divine masculine energy relishes in doing things out in the real world, like having adventures, making change, saying what's on your mind, and taking risks. Yeah, I think it's really powerful. So, and we've been talking a lot about this, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and what are the differences and how can we flow in each healthfully, right? And I think that a big part of that is identifying what are the differences and when is the right time to act on this one, and what flows best. How does it flow best?
Absolutely.
I think it's really powerful.
Definitely. And that's what I enjoy with you, is that we're able to flow, because you're a very dominant force, and I can let you be that. when you need to be.
Because you're confident in your divine masculinity.
Yeah.
Like my masculine side's never going to overpower yours,
No.
right? You don't have to be like afraid, like, oh, like she's.
It doesn't threaten you at all.
It's probably
it's
because I'm littler.
it's very attractive, actually.
Ooh, can I read one last part? I think this
Mhm.
is really powerful and kind of ties back into like what I'm doing with work and how I was explaining how the womb is our first brain and that's where our intuition comes from. You've ever heard of like a gut feeling? It's your intuition. It's really powerful. Some qualities of the divine feminine may include intuitive nature, being heart-centered, compassionate, wise, accepting, forgiving, collaborative, and reflective. But that was kind of dope. I just had to add it in there.
Kinda dope. Okay. So I like to do word association. Let me pull this mic closer to me. I like to do word association. And I was in church and something that they brought out, and let me see what this triggers in you. There's a difference between watching and reading personal development and growth and walking in personal development and growth. There's a difference in like posting some like woke shit. I call it woke, and woke to me has moved away from like Black Lives Matter shit. Like woke is like conscious shit to me.
Absolutely.
So I know a lot of people who speak a lot of conscious shit, woke shit, and post a lot of woke shit. But live a lot of very shadow life, and they're not doing the actions. I'm not the arbiter of people, like, and they're, even though I want, like, I'm very critical of that shit, but like I'm not the arbiter of people's like spiritual journey. But what does that trigger in you? Like the difference between watching and like reading personal development, personal growth, and walking in it. What does that trigger in
Well,
you?
I've lived both sides. And I feel like during really challenging healing period of my life, I was craving the knowledge, craving like what these people, these enlightened beings had and who they were. And I wanted that so badly. And so like reading all of these like self-help or self-betterment, empowerment, all these books and everything was a really, really good place to start for me to like understand what spirituality is about, what self-love was about, and really dive into that. But really only until I stopped doing it for the gram and started doing it because I knew that it was right for me was when I started to actually live that and be that, right? And waking up and being in that essence of knowing that there's so much more and whatever, all the practices that you get to tap into. Doing yoga for myself, stretching for myself, meditating for myself, like the music that I listen to. Like we can talk all about it and be like, yeah, like it's the way, whatever, or whatever that you're promoting. But living it and being that is a huge, it's a huge difference. There's a big difference, which we know. Yeah, I think when I stopped like doing it for other people, right? I was like reading a book or would like have a cool book and then like take a picture of it and post it on my Instagram story. Or like, I'm reading this book because I'm so educated. Like, but when I actually dove into the book and did it for me and started like eating the fruits of what it was sharing with me, only then did I really start becoming what I was wanting to be, right? And that's when the healing journey really started. Was taking a deeper look at all the stuff that right? Like healing, I think it's crazy. Healing for me in my experience, the most painful part about that is not even like the initial pain that caused the hurt. It was like the having to face the hurt and be like, you no longer control me, right?
What is healing to you?
Forgiving
Mm.
myself, others, myself for allowing people to treat me a certain way or allowing certain behaviors or allowing myself to think certain thoughts. Yeah, forgiveness is really, really crucial part of healing.
Yeah. To me, it's action. It's action.
In what way?
I feel like it's not healing healing happen it does happen in the void space, like the being space. We're gonna talk about that next. But like it does happen in the being, right? Like in the gentleness and the quiet. There's a lot of healing there. A lot of my healing happened on that floor couch, on my little hippie floor couch, a lot of in deep meditation and in front of my altar and in the silence. A lot of my healing happened there. So but I was doing the action. I was doing my work, and everybody's work is different. I say like do your work, and like I was doing my work, and my work was to be at that moment, but it was still doing something. And if it's therapy, if it's yoga, if it's
Journaling.
journaling, if it's writing, if it's painting, like do your work. And
Yeah.
like healing is an action word. Healing is not like oh, it's, you know what I mean? It's an
It's
action.
happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, you got to take
It's
action for that to
it's
happen.
doing
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
like that's what healing
It's
is
the
to
reason
me.
why I don't believe that like time heals all wounds. No.
No,
Addressing them
addressing
does.
it. Yeah, doing something
And that's the
about it.
painful part, because you
Yeah.
have to like take that pain and bring it back up. I mean, so many people for so many years just shove and suppress because it hurts, right? And they're like, oh, I just can't. But you have to face it and look at it and
Yeah.
deal with it and say, this no longer controls me, or this is how I feel about this, and I'm choosing to forgive. I'm choosing to move forward, or whatever it is that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So it is an action word for sure. You said, what
Definitely.
does healing mean to me? It is definitely action, right?
Definitely.
I think forgiveness is a huge part of that for me in my healing journey. And being able to recognize I'm hurt and I can no longer suppress this because I'm boiling over. And that's coming out in my behavior. It's coming out in my communication with people that I love. You know, I was turning into somebody I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, oh, okay, I got some stuff that I get to bring up and address because I don't want to walk around carrying this weight anymore.
Definitely.
So it's releasing for sure.
It's beautiful. So I'm gonna give you a compliment really quick. So it's cool what you look like. It's cool what you look like. You're hot.
Thanks, babe.
It's cool. But even when I first met you, like, obviously like looks, or you see someone, you're like, okay, I'm a yeah, it's fire. and but then you see how they be and who they be in their presence. And that's what I saw with you. I was like, oh, who she be is tight. And then you said you read a poem, and I was like, oh, word. Okay, so so the term ways of being, choosing who you be. What does that mean to you? And how do you choose who you be? And are you watching for that? What does that excite in you when you hear that?
That's a good question. I like that. Who I be. It's so much more than just who you're presenting to be, right?
Yeah,
Like we were saying earlier about like doing it for the gram. You can choose to be this person that truly is just a makeup of like however many people that you're like spending time with and following. But who you be are your thoughts, your private thoughts when you're alone. It's what you the first thing. I heard this quote. It was something about like your first thought is the programming, right? When you're introduced to something or you see something, your first thought is the programming, and your second thought is really how you feel about it, right? Or what you think about it, which I think is really interesting because there is a lot of programming. And so I think that there's a lot of people who are not themselves. They're not like original.
Yeah.
And I think that we're, especially in this day and age on social media, everyone's trying to be like everybody else, trying to be the richest, the baddest, the biggest booty, whatever it is. And so a lot of people are not living authentically because certain types of people and ways of being are more attractive per se, right? And so really diving deep into like self-discovery for me has been huge. I'm pretty confident in who I am, and I know that I'm still growing. And I think it's really, really important to never stay idle with that. But I know where my roots lie, and I know who I am as a person, and I know that my heart's intention. And so really diving into that, like we talk a lot about, the world talks a lot about like, oh, self-love. And I think the word has become cliche, but it's so crucial to discover who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what you want in this life. And that for me has been extremely life-changing.
Yeah.
Is not just like, oh, I'm just Gianna, I'm just, a little sunflower, whatever, because I like these things. But it's like, what are my heart's intentions, and what do I want from myself? Like, who do I want myself to be? And so, like what you asked, like, do you choose who you be? I definitely think that you get to choose who you be.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How you doing on time? 30. Okay, we're gonna wrap up. Look how good you did. So she wanted me to do notes. She wanted me to share notes with her so she could be prepared. And this is I wrote a few
offhand.
I wrote a few little like phrases, but this is all offhand, and she killed it. So
Aw.
come on, so easy. So let's talk about what you offer and like pitch yourself.
Beautiful.
And we were building your website, so let's start pushing people there, even though it may not be up and live. So go ahead, tell me what you do.
All right,
What you
dope.
got?
So I am The Rooted Woman on Instagram, all platforms. Right now, my focus is womb healing specifically. I'm doing a lot of Yoni steaming, Reiki, healing henna, where I'll talk a little bit more about that eventually. But you can see it all on my page, Instagram, The Rooted Woman. And I'm getting my website created. I'm really getting up there and out there. And I just want to be able to support women specifically, whether it be one-on-one coaching, group coaching, specific events. I want to do a lot of womb healing events. I'm actually planning on it. I have my first event coming up pretty soon where we're going to have about 10, 15 women. I'm going to try to push the limits a little bit, but 10, 15 women coming together to Yoni steam together and get educated on what that looks like and how we can start like a Yoni healing regimen, right? So we can just heal the world one pussy at a time, baby.
Hey, let's go. Beautiful. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for
You did
having
so
me.
great.
Yeah, so proud of you.
All right, cool. We out of here.
Peace.
Peace.